As President-elect Trump prepares to return to the White House, joining me now, some Trump supporters. Business owner Rich Kupka, farmer Brad Smith, and recent college grad Mitch Robson to talk about their hopes, your expectations for a second term. To each of you, thank you for being with us. Rich, let me start with you, and I want to hear from each of you on this. How closely are you following Trump's cabinet picks and those he is choosing to include in his inner circle right now? And maybe beginning with one of the more controversial picks in Matt Gaetz.
Well, I like his nominations. Again, people from outside of the swamp is what we need. I'm not too familiar with the Gaetz sexual accusations, but we had the same thing with Kavanaugh and Thomas too back in the day.
Brad, what about you? And I'm thinking more importantly, the agricultural pick, right? Who leads that department is one I know you'd be paying attention to as a farmer. But how closely are you watching these choices?
Well, we pay attention pretty close. As a proud member of the Illinois Farm Bureau, I'm sure they're helping to surface names for the Agriculture Secretary. I would anticipate it'd be much less polarizing of a nomination as what the one for Matt Gaetz is. But, we hope we can find somebody that can, do the work of, for our benefit as farmers, but also for the nation's food supply. So, we're fairly confident of that.
All right. Mitch, what about you? What have you been watching with some of these announcements, and how does that land after your support for Trump?
Well, I've certainly been interested in the anticipated Department of Agriculture seat as well. I think both from the perspective of, fixing American health, a lot of our chronic disease issues, as well as just paring back a lot of some of the damaging regulations that hurt both farmers and consumers. I think Thomas Massie is a name that's been floated around, and he is someone who I would definitely put my full support behind for U.S. Department of Agriculture. He's really sharp, and so I'm going to be watching that cabinet filling very closely. The
election dust has settled somewhat since the results of the 2024 election. Rich, for you, what were your priorities in casting your vote, and what are your greatest expectations of a second Trump presidency?
Yeah, less taxes, less regulation, less inflation, less government, less crime under Trump. More prosperity, more peace. Now, Hamas wants to sing Kumbaya, and Trump's not even in office. And definitely more joy with the Trump dance across the nation.
Okay. Brad, what about you? What are your expectations for the next 4 years?
Well, I would agree with what he just said. I hope we have more national optimism. And I think you can see that. If you're from where I'm from, you need, some optimism and some enthusiasm to make investments in your home and your business. And that's what we need to make America go out here and, in the heartland. And I think we'll have that, and then once you get through the optimism part, the devil's in the details, but, things like election integrity, voter ID, and heaven forbid you have institute some term limits on some people. So those are the things that I'm hoping for and looking for.
And Mitch, what about you? What are your greatest hopes, and what really drove your vote this election?
Well, I would first of all, I would agree with Brad about optimism, and I'd say so far that's borne out by the data, from early polling. I mean, voters, approve of Trump's transition by 13 points, which even compared to his, 2016 victory, that was a dead even approval. So voters are uniquely optimistic about this incoming Trump presidency as a whole. I would say, aside from just the general optimism, I'm most hoping to see, the damaging fiscal policies of the Biden administration be reversed. I mean, but right now, just through 1 month of this new fiscal year, we're already on pace for a $2 trillion deficit. We just can't add that much to the debt. It's really going to hurt everybody in America, especially young people like me who are going to have to foot the bill of that debt sooner or later. So that's what I'm most hopeful to see turn around.
Mitch, you're a self-described libertarian. I know you were hoping that Trump would fulfill his promise to appoint a libertarian to his cabinet. RFK Jr., a third-party candidate, now named to be Health and Human Services Secretary and lead that department. What do you make of that choice?
I really like the choice. I think, you know, the reality is that we, myself included, for a while, haven't focused on the chronic disease and obesity epidemics that have plagued this country. And many people, including sometimes me, you know, disagree with RFK's diagnoses of what the problems are. But the reality is it is a problem, and someone needs to try to tackle it. And so what I would like to see from RFK Jr. is tackling this problem the right way, less by nanny state policies that have gotten us to the point where we are, with the US regulatory apparatus just becoming more bloated, but more through cutting back harmful subsidies. You know, I mean, so many of our ultra processed foods are cheap because of subsidies to the corn industry through the Farm Bill, whereas less than 1% of our subsidies go towards fruit and vegetables. So that's just something you can cut back rather than add via more regulation that would make Americans a lot healthier, in my opinion.
That's a great point. Brad, I'm interested in your thoughts on this. And one thing he's calling for is less pesticides in our food, which I know impacts farmers across the country, but also the proposal of more tariffs. Your thoughts on both of those big issues in your industry?
Well, first of all, when it comes to, you know, RFK, he's got definitely some different ideas on food production. And, you know, I personally may not agree with some of those ideas, but as farmers, we're always looking for better ways to do things. And, you know, I think, you know, we need to have an open dialogue on how we can make our food healthier and safer for everyone. And if there are better ways to do it, then we need to study those. When it comes to tariffs, you know, last time around with Trump in office, the American soybean farmer was, you know, a big loser with the Chinese trade war and tariffs on that. So there's a certain level of uneasiness, you know, for us people in that business. If we have to make a sacrifice for the greater good, then I think we're willing to do that for a while. But you know, it's kind of a scary situation when it comes to that.
Rich, as a business owner, I know you faced challenges in the last few years, the owner of Kupka's Cafe, too. What are your greatest hopes under a Trump administration specific to your business to meet some of the challenges you faced coming out of the pandemic?
The ending of crime. You know, the Democratic mayors across the country are not politicians; they're activists, and they curtail the segment of the population that's at the expense of the rest of the people of Pittsburgh and across the country, where there's crime everywhere. There's homeless, there's drugs, and I think Trump will come in and provide law and order to stop all these miscreants from doing the things that they're doing.
Rich, Brad, and Mitch, thanks to each of you for stopping by this morning. Sure appreciate your time and your thoughts.
You bet. Have a good day.
You too.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.